said, you can have the greatest product in the world, the most viral thing, but sometimes you got to pour a little gas on the fire. You gotta like yell from the rooftops, hey, check this out.
Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, the weekly show for nomads, work campers, RVers, and entrepreneurs looking to earn a living or build a business while enjoying the RV lifestyle. This week's host is Jim Nelson. Let's settle in and enjoy the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by RV Life.
Hey there, Jim here at RV Life, and I am an RVer. I am an escapee and an escaper. Keep listening to hear why that matters, or if you have no idea what I'm talking about. I've also pretty much always been an entrepreneur, ever since I started selling my guppies at about 9 years old. Stay tuned to hear that story. I tell it because my guest today talks about his very first business venture. As a young kid, he sold gravel to the neighbors. Since then, Joel Holland has written an amazing entrepreneurial success story for himself. He's been a columnist for Entrepreneur magazine, I think while he was still in college. And he grew a successful subscription-based tech company to, well, almost to the point of burnout. And that's when he discovered the RV life. And he loved it. So when he started searching for that next big thing, he knew he wanted to serve the RVing community. Joel Holland started to get worried while researching those business ideas, and once said, trying to force it is like trying to force love. That really resonates with me because I met Renee once I stopped looking so hard for love. And we found purpose and built our business by letting it evolve organically. Spoiler alert, luck had nothing to do with it. But you may recognize the name as CEO of Harvest Hosts. Be sure to check out Joel's interview on the RV Life podcast for the whole backstory and details about their more recent acquisition of the Escapees RV Club. We dig a bit deeper here into the business side of things. We discuss the importance of risk management when it comes to pursuing your passion. I get Joel's insight on the whole life-work balance we all seek. And we explore thoughts on that balance between planning and grit and the significance of finding purpose in business. You'll also hear how much luck may actually have to do with it, or not, and how the way you define success really matters most. If you're listening to this RV Entrepreneur Podcast, you're probably an RVer or some kind of nomad too. And you probably have some sort of entrepreneurial mindset. We get into that. And much more, like collaborating with influencers, building relationships, scaling operations, and how to avoid consumer confusion when offering a wide variety of services. Get ready to take notes, because I sure did. Enjoy this discussion with one of the most successful RV entrepreneurs I've ever met right after this short message. This episode is made possible by Travelfy. Want reliable internet without the hassle? Meet Travelfy. It's portable, high-speed Wi-Fi that's ready to go wherever you are. From road trips to remote cabins. No tricky setup or permanent location required. Just plug in and you're connected. And here's the best part. No contracts, no commitments, and no reactivation fees. Pay only for the months you need. Travelfy connects to the strongest available signal among multiple major networks, so you stay online with confidence, backed by a US-based support team that knows the outdoor lifestyle. Travelfy, simplifying internet while you travel. Visit travelfy.com today. That's TRAVLFI.com. Listeners can save 15% with code RVE at checkout. Joel, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate your time here.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for having me. This is a topic that I could talk about all day and never get tired of it.
Good, because I first just wanted to say congratulations on kind of the incredible entrepreneurship success story you've written for yourself. And I know you have a wealth of information to share. But since this is technically the RV Life Entrepreneur Podcast, I have a couple quick questions first. I usually ask my guests, how did you first discover the RV life and what was the attraction?
Yeah, I kind of jumped into it spontaneously and a little serendipitously. I was living in the Washington, D.C. area, running my first startup and one that I'd taken like a decade to build in the video technology space. And I was really quite burned out on living in a city, going to a cubicle. I kind of longed for the open road, where I didn't really know that's what I was longing for, but I knew I just wanted to be doing something different. And my wife and I attended a wedding in Northern Virginia in Manassas. and there happened to be an RV dealership across the street from the venue. And the day after the wedding, a little hungover and broken, I didn't want to go back to the city. And I convinced my wife to take a little detour over to the dealership. And we walked in having really no context for RVs, right? We walked into the first unit, which was this beautiful fifth wheel, a Grand Design fifth wheel. And I was like, holy cow, this thing's got like multiple levels. It's got a fireplace. It's got couches. Like, imagine how comfortable we would be just driving, and how free. And I fell in love with the concept right there and then and there, and very spontaneously bought it. I didn't even have a truck to pull it.
Huh.
I was like, this is it. Like, we got to do this. I need this mentally. I need this. And my wife was a good sport. We then subsequently, I told the dealer, I was like, I got to go buy a truck. I can't take this thing out of here. I have no way to do it. I'll be back. Hold my space. Ended up going to Roanoke, buying an F-250, coming back, picking it up. And the rest is kind of history. We fell in love with the RV lifestyle. And the more we did it, the more I loved it. And we started with weekend trips, grew into longer trips. And eventually we just kind of took off for a couple of years, and we traveled all the lower 48 states and had an absolute blast. And by the end of that trip, I loved the RV community and lifestyle even more than when I started, right? And so that was it ultimately led me to wanting to do business in this world.
And fantastic. And that's how you eventually led into the Harvest Hosts, which you've been doing since 2018, which I want to get to. But if we step way back for a minute, have you always been an entrepreneur? I believe you were a columnist for Entrepreneur Magazine, still in college, was it? Or even before then? What was your earliest venture, and where does that self-employed spirit come from?
Yeah, if you ask my parents, they'll say that my first venture was selling gravel to neighbors in our neighborhood when I was 3. And I guess I would actually take gravel and I'd go knock on the door and I'd try to sell them back their gravel. And a lot of them were good sports and paid me for their gravel. That just kind of carried through from there. At 5, my dad used to take me down to the local store, and I'd sit out front and I'd sell wares. I'd sell any little tchotchkes that I had around the house. So I had a little store. The next phase was Joel's golf balls. We lived on a little golf resort, and I'd go out, collect balls, and I'd have friends collect balls. And I had created a stand, Joel's golf balls, and sold golf balls back to people after they lost them. And that was fun. And that was really my first taste of, man, I can like build a business. People will give me money for a product if they need it, and it's a good product. And it was such a rush. Every day I'd go to my little cart, I'd pull money out of the mailbox because it was honor system. And it was a big deal. And I got addicted to that rush of selling a product that someone wants. And it just kind of went from there. And I'll never forget, in 1997, when I was like 12, we got our first computer with the internet, and that just blew the doors wide open. All of a sudden I found eBay, and I'm like, man, I can sell literally anything to anybody in the world. No one has to know I'm a 12-year-old. Only the quality of my product matters. And very quickly became a power seller on eBay, selling over $10,000 a year worth of stuff by the time I was like 14. And that was cool. And I was saving all that money because 14-year-olds don't have very expensive lifestyles. I was reinvesting it in more technology. I loved technology. Ended up buying the rights to some software that I ultimately then started selling on a grander scale. And one thing led to another. But I mean, I guess the longer answer is I just love selling stuff. If I can find something that adds value to somebody and get a good price for it, it just feels like a great transaction. Everybody wins. And I'm addicted to that feeling.
Fantastic. That backstory explains quite a bit, and we have some things in common there. I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and my parents got me a fish tank, and all the guppies started breeding. For some reason, I started to sell guppies, and I traced a sign, and my dad cut it out and put it on the side of the road. It said guppies for sale. So I was at 8 or 9. I was selling guppies. Some guy came along one day and wanted to feed the guppies to his Oscar, his carnivorous fish. I wouldn't sell them to him, and that might explain why I ended up in the nonprofit industry. My wife sold avocados, so we all kind of have a similar spirit there. But I think some of your spirit may also come from your personal pursuits. I understand you're a Swiftwater and wilderness rescue certifications, and love that adventure travel. Does that passion for risk and adventure translate into business management and life as a whole? Or do you have any analogies there you can expand upon that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I spent this morning bombing down the ski slopes at 60 miles an hour, and to
Wow.
me, it's a rush that I enjoy. It's a calculated risk, right? I don't want to die. I don't want to get hurt, but there certainly is risk. But I do feel like entrepreneurs are inherently, I don't know if they're born with it or you just develop over time more of an appetite or tolerance for risk, but yeah, totally. I mean, being an entrepreneur is the ultimate risk. You're wagering your capital, you're wagering your time on an unproven concept. If it was easy and proven, everyone would have already done it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is no doubt part of entrepreneurship. There's risk involved. And I don't like crazy risk, right? So I'm not on the end of the spectrum of some entrepreneurs who will bet it all and go
Mm-hmm.
crazy. Um, but I'm not risk adverse. And I think that's I think that's what I would describe myself that way in business, and my employees, I hope, would agree. We love to take risks, but none that are out of control.
Yeah, that balance kind of explains a lot, especially like kind of knowing when to say when is enough and not to take those huge risks without planning. There's certain entrepreneurs out there, like you said, they have that just do it mentality, like just leap. And I've heard a lot of people, oh, just do it, just go full time and just, it'll work out. I often tell people, well, it kind of helps if you plan a little bit. Do you have any insight on to just do it versus plan ahead and not plan too much? There's a fine line in there, huh?
There is. I do think that grit is more important than a concept. Like at the end of the day, you can take a mediocre idea and have great success with it by working your tail off. You can have a great idea and go nowhere if you're not willing to put in the work. So, grit and follow through are the most important part of the formula, in my opinion. And I love the quote. Success is where luck meets preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And every entrepreneur has some luck, right? I'm lucky I was born at a time when the internet was coming out, right? I'm lucky I was born in the United States. Lucky I had the ability to get a computer. But then I was also, the design was there. I made sure I was on that thing, learning everything about it every day. I took a different path, right? Like most kids were out doing one thing. I was sitting behind a computer by choice. And luckily that, those two things combined. But yeah, I do think there are always multiple pieces to the success
Mm-hmm.
formula. But I do think grit, if you can't grind it out, then it's never going to work.
And speaking of that success over our years and time on the road and what we've done with ourselves, we often get people saying, "Wow, you must be lucky." And yeah, there might be some luck in there, but there's 99.9% hard work, effort, and strategic thinking about it, right?
That's right. And it's another quote that I like. The harder I work, the luckier I get. And I think that is also the case. There's luck involved in everything in life. Um, if I didn't leave my house every day, I would not get very lucky, right? If I didn't take phone calls and meet people, I wouldn't get very lucky. So the people who put themselves out there more tend to get luckier, and that's absolutely true. But yeah, I think luck can be a negative word
Mm-hmm.
used in the wrong context. But I think everyone would admit that we have a lot of luck in our lives too.
Sure. And it sounds like you've been, quote unquote, pretty lucky with some of the stuff you've done, which obviously took a lot of work. You kind of hinted at one there. One of your first major milestones was growing and selling the Storyblocks business. And there's plenty of articles about that history. See the show notes for some links to that stuff. But I read you once said that throughout that journey, you, quote, did a lot of things wrong. One of them was trying to do too much myself for too long, so you got burned out. And I totally get that. What advice do you have for the solopreneur or the small business guy or gal that wants to grow but might not have that big growth mindset? Wants to do it all themselves or thinks they can?
Well, what's one interesting thing that I never considered when I was younger is that um, you can't grow forever, and you don't need to, right? You need to figure out what is right for you, and that growth at all costs mindset will ultimately lead to burnout because you can't fold a piece in paper in half over and over again. At a certain point, it's impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I was younger, I never considered that. It was just like every year, let's grow more, get bigger, get bigger. To what end? if I was trying to build $1 trillion business, sure, keep doing that. But that's not really what I wanted. And I didn't know that. I just wanted to build a great business that provided freedom. I just like freedom. I like the freedom to be able to go ski. I like the freedom to spend time with my family. So this time around, I was much more cognizant of what I wanted out of this whole thing. And because of that, my expectations are different. And because of that, I hired people earlier and got better people on board. And I don't spend as much time on the business because for anyone listening who's gone through burnout working before, it's terrible. Like it like wipes you out. And all of a sudden you just don't want to do anything anymore. And then that's the most unproductive you could possibly be.
Oh yeah.
So finding that balance where you don't burn out, super important.
You said a couple of important things there, and one is freedom. That's kind of the word I turn to when I tell people why I do what I do, because I was experiencing that burnout. Renee and I ran our own marketing communications firm for about 10 years, full service graphics, all production, sales, marketing. We did it all, and we sold it for that exact reason. If I hired production help, I needed sales help. And if I hired a salesperson, I'd need more production help. And for some reason, I knew I could never train anyone to do what I did as well as I could. So when someone's in that mindset, how do people get out of the mindset of thinking no one can do it as good as I can when they need to grow their business?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think when I was younger, the reason I did so much was not because I thought I could do it better. It's because I was afraid to, I was both cheap, right? I didn't want to hire someone else to do something I could do because I wanted to save the money. Like that was a big one. The idea is like, ooh, paying like, a 5-figure sum to a customer service person. Why don't I just answer emails myself? Right. So for me, it was being cheap. And then also like a little bit afraid of having employees. I was like, that felt like a lot of responsibility. And I'll never forget the first time I hired someone, it was very stressful. And then once I had that person, it was like the first time I owned an iPhone. And I'm like, wow, how did I ever live without this? And it becomes easier and easier, right? And then you get really good at hiring people and hiring great people. And you realize you get older, and especially as you get multiple turns through business, there's certain things you're really good at. And there's certain things that others are better at. And usually it's a lot of things, right? So I feel like I'm getting pretty good these days at figuring out what I'm good at, where I add value, and then offloading the rest. And that just ends up being a very successful formula for the business.
It sounds like it takes a lot of trust in the person and your ability to select the right person, faith in that they're going to do the right job, and the ability to let go, which was my problem. I couldn't let go of my quality control and think that someone else could do it. But I'm a firm believer now, you got to do what you do best and entrust others to do the same. You clearly must have done the same, especially like after Storyblocks. You took some time to find that next big thing. And Renee and I did the same thing when we finally sold our business and hit the road. We planned to take a year off and look for the next big thing. And here we are 17 years later, still trying to figure that out. But you said that next big thing didn't come very easily. I read that you said you were trying to force it, which is like trying to force love. And I think that's one of the best quotes. You can't force love. But you started burning out and trying to find the next big thing because of that. What kind of advice might you have for folks who may have trouble finding that ideal venture, or maybe focusing on some big idea they have that might not be gaining traction? How do you get going or get an idea that's really lighting your fire?
Yeah, you nailed it. Because I sold Storyblocks. We moved out here to Vail, Colorado, drove the RV across the country, pulled up, kind of again, spontaneously bought a place, pulled the RV in front, unloaded it. And then for a year, I had the most fun, guilt-free, like ski bum lifestyle. I was hiking, biking, skiing, playing every single day. And I really needed that after Storyblocks. But what was interesting was after a while, and it was about a year in my case, I got kind of like burned out on playing, which was weird. And that's a weird feeling because then you're like, now what? Like if playing is not the ultimate goal, what are we supposed to do at this point? And I realized, okay, it's like, I'm young. It's time for me to do something else. I need to like do something productive with my mind. I love business. Let's build another business. And so then the next like 6 months were really fun and exciting because I was like eyes wide open, analyzing every business opportunity and thinking hard about what I was going to create, what I was going to build. But as the days got on, that started getting a little scarier and scarier because I wasn't finding the answer. And the longer I went without finding the answer, the harder I was forcing it. I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. Come on. I've done the smart guy. But I went from thinking like I'm a smart guy to, maybe I was a one-trick pony. And maybe I got lucky, with the entire Storyblocks thing. And I'm never going to be able to do this again. And that was it. That was the one trick in my bag. And here I am in my like early 30s, barely 30. And I'm done. I'm toast, cooked chicken. And I'm like, then that was really stressful. And that was the point where I started to just pull back a bit and try to relax. And that was that quote I said about like forcing love. I realized like I'm literally sitting here trying to architect a business with the outcome being a financial outcome. That would be like saying, I want to find someone who's 5'9", 105 pounds, exactly this hair color. Like that's a ridiculous way of finding love, right? You want to find something that resonates with you. And so I literally sat down and I just made a list of all the things I love doing. And RVing was top of the list. RVing and skiing, but I couldn't find a good ski business yet. But yeah, RVing and skiing. And so I'm like, all right, I love RVing. I love this community. Why don't I start there? And instead of trying to build something from the ground up, why don't I see what's out there that would match with my interests and some of my expertise? And I kind of drew this Venn diagram of what I had done at Storyblocks well. So there was, stock video and understanding all the technicalities of production music, stock photos, but I didn't want to do that again. But there was also memberships because the product was a membership. So I learned a lot about memberships, annual renewing memberships. I learned a lot about online acquisition, online marketing. And these are the things that I was particularly good at. And so then I looked at RVing and I'm like, how can I match RVing with membership, online marketing, and do something I love with something I'm good at, find that happy middle. And that's ultimately what led me to Harvest Hosts. I found this, I was asking everybody on the road, tell me about the hidden gems that I don't know about. And I met a couple who told me about this crazy cool concept called Harvest Hosts. And I looked into it. I was like, this is awesome. And so I joined and confirmed it was an amazing concept. And then I reached out to Don and Kim Green, the owners, and just said, hey, I'm looking for my next thing. I love what you're doing. I'm an actual RVer. I'm passionate. So I'm not just some business guy coming in to make a quick buck. I want to grow this thing. And the rest is history. It's been an amazing ride. But I mean, that's the summary of what I would tell someone is if you can, instead of just trying to find a business for the outcome of financial success, find something you love doing because it'll be a lot easier to then get the financial success.
Your RV adventures are worth sharing. With an RV Life profile, you can connect with a community of RV enthusiasts, engage in meaningful conversations, and inspire others on their journey. It's not just about where you go. It's about the memories you make and the people you meet along the way. Start sharing your unique RV experiences at rvlife.com.
So talk to me a bit about what you love doing. Because I often tell people you can be passionate about something, but it's really going to make you feel fulfilled and you'll be successful if it gives you purpose. So I have this thing about purpose versus passion, where if you're actually serving a purpose, it kind of reminds me of the Ikigai concept where you got to love what you do, be rewarded for it. It's something the world needs and you serve others. So do you see like being able to truly be successful if you're just chasing the money or passionate about something, or what does it take to be successful in what you're doing?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that you can look around at all the different businesses and realize you can be successful a lot of different ways. You can be successful selling things that kill people. You can be successful selling toilets. I personally would never be comfortable doing either because I just wouldn't be that passionate about it, right? Like at the end of the day, I think a lot of these businesses, you might make a lot of money, but one day you're going to wake up and look in the mirror and go, to what end? And like, am I really serving a purpose? So I'm a big fan, and this is just personal preference, but I'm a big fan of companies that you do well and society does well in some way, right? And so for Harvest Hosts, our first cultural value is we win when the community wins. And intentionally, there are 3 wins there. Right? It's a win-win-win. And it's true because it's a win for our members. It's a win for us as employees and owners of the company. And it's a win for these small business hosts.
Sure, the partners that you've developed.
Totally. And our small businesses, they'll make an extra $50 million this year from our members. And that's really meaningful for them. And that keeps these incredible small businesses alive. And selfishly, these are the small businesses that I love visiting. And if wineries start disappearing and breweries start disappearing and museums start disappearing, I think we have a much more boring landscape.
Yeah.
So I love that we serve them. And of course, our members, like Harvest Host members, love the product because it's a happy product. So yeah, I'm with you. Like to me, the easiest business to run well is one that you love and that does something you feel a purpose for, because it just makes waking up in the morning easy and a lot less likely to wake up one day and go, "Oh boy."
Speaking of easy, I come back to the luck and the serendipity, because you knew someone who knew someone that had already built the framework and the groundwork for Harvest Host, which we're going to dive into next. So Renee and I, when we decided to look for that next big thing, we kind of found it when we stopped looking and realized what we were doing and the people we were serving with our little blog and our website, and helping the other people in the same situation we were, and it just grew organically. So that luck comes into play a little bit when you met the Harvest Host people. So I wanted to dive in a little deeper on the business side of things there. So listeners can learn more about your purchase of Harvest Host in the show notes. But after acquiring that in 2018, I believe membership skyrocketed from 6,000 to more than 250,000 by 2023. So what key strategies kind of fueled that incredible growth, and what other factors contributed to that success so quickly?
Yeah. So the reason I was attracted by the company was that it was a really great company and a really great concept. And to me, there was like a great concept that had the ability for a lot more people to enjoy it. And that's what made it so attractive. And so when I reached out to Don and Kim, I told them, from the beginning, I'm like, there's a couple things that I want to do here. I don't want to change the concept. I think this concept's perfect, right? Like overnights, unique overnight stays at incredible places that you can't get otherwise. But I would like to improve the technology, build an app, build a booking system, grow the host network, get more of these hosts. There were 600 at the time. Today we have almost 10,000 when you include Boondockers Welcome, 5,000 if you just look at small businesses. And then once those things are in place, I want to grow membership because I want more RVers to experience how cool this is. And I'm convinced there are more than 6,000 RVers who should be using Harvest Host. And I told them that. I'm like, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to spend millions of dollars advertising this product. How does it make you feel? And they're like, yeah, that's, we wouldn't do that. We think that this is a word of mouth product, and people who are in the, who are going to have used it or have heard about it. And I said, you can have the greatest product in the world, the most viral thing, but sometimes you got to pour a little gas on the fire. You gotta like yell from the rooftops, hey, check this out. And so that's what we did. I mean, and that was really, I think those were kind of the three main pillars. It was improving the technology, growing the host network, and then talking about it, really getting out there and advertising, marketing. I mean, you now see these days we're at every RV show, every trade show, or at every industry show. We try to be everywhere because we believe that's a great product and people should hear about it.
So speaking of getting the word out, you work with influencers to generate awareness for Harvest Host. What benefits do you offer content creators, and how do you vet them to ensure a mutually beneficial relationship? Because so many of them out there, everyone's a content creator now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so one of the first things we did, and I did this personally, was I started reaching out to anyone out there who had what I thought was an interesting social media account, a YouTube channel, Instagram account, right? Anyone who's creating RV specific content that I found interesting, I wanted them to talk about Harvest Hosts, but genuinely. So I reached out and I basically said, hey, do you already have a membership? And many of them did. In which case I'm like, great, let's try to find a way to work together. I'd love for you to talk about your experience. For those who didn't have one, I said, I'd love to give you one for free so you can try it, right? What I didn't do is say, hey, I want you to go out there and promote us without any idea what we do, right? I didn't want these to be disingenuous. And I think that was a good idea because I never even told people how to review it. It was like, hey, just go out there and use the product, make some content. I hope I'm confident it's going to be positive. Like if it's not, Then I have some other work to do, but I never told people go out there and like rave about it. That was not in the payment. And we did a little, some of it were, some were paid for content. Some were, most of it's organic, right? A lot of people are just talking about Harvest Hosts. But then some were affiliates where they would get some commissions based on referrals. But I wanted to make sure that people were actually using the product if they were referring the product. So that was another referral requirement, was that we didn't allow people to make referrals to us unless they were using the product. So they weren't just out there shilling it.
Back to growing, in addition to the membership, you grew the hosts, like you said, from like 600 to 10,000. And that might help explain the membership growth, because once there's more diversity of places and more places, you can get more memberships, more word of mouth even. But how did marketing to partners differ from selling memberships? And what did Harvest Host do to build those relationships, to get more onboarding of locations?
The biggest thing was investing time and money in it as a acquisition channel. So historically, it had been kind of organic. Don and Kim would work on bringing in about 10 hosts a month personally, making the calls, and that was great. But I knew there was tens of thousands of businesses in the country that should be part of the program, and so we just started investing in it. We built a team. Right, today's team is like over 12 people who are host recruiters, host onboarding team, host specialists who then take care of these contacts afterwards. It's a very expensive team, but it's worth it because these hosts are the lifeblood of our program. Mm-hmm. My COO likes to say there is no Harvest Hosts without hosts, and he's right. We've always said the hosts are the most important part of this program. And so we simply invested there. We invested in the teammates and team members to recruit them and bring them on. We invested in going to industry shows, right? Like we're members of countless winery associations, mm-hmm. brewery associations, bison associations, water amusement attraction associations. Like we're out there, right? Our team last week was at a bison association conference in person, meeting and mingling. And so we are at 50 to 100 events a year, making sure people know what we're doing and asking them to participate.
That's amazing. I mean, you're marketing to their industries en masse. So basically you're getting people in the door. So you're offering them quite a bit, but all this growth comes with growing pains, right? How did you have to grow the company to keep up with managing the growing membership and locations? Like how explosive was that growth and new management and new positions? You grew a company, how did that take place? How did that take shape?
Yes. So I knew from my time at Storyblocks that I took too long to hire up and that we grew quickly and all of a sudden we were doing too much and that was having a negative impact on both the employees, but also the company. And I didn't want the company to be the bottleneck to this thing growing. And so we hired great people early. And today we have over 80 full-time employees all over the country, fully distributed. And they're doing everything, across the board really well. So really keeping up with the growth was a matter of, I think, two things. One, making sure we had the right host network. We knew that the way to we actually did a retrospective. We're like, okay, let's pretend we broke the business. How did we do that? And the easiest way to break the business was to not grow the host network and really grow membership. Because then all of a sudden you'd have members not being able to find places to go and everyone's overwhelmed and unhappy. So we're like, let's not do that. So we invested in the host network first. We invested in the technology because we knew, hey, if we have 250,000 or we said 1 million members, they can't all be calling hosts. The hosts are going to die. Right. So we built a booking system to manage the calendar for the hosts, take that lift off of them. And that was a great idea. But at the time we did that when we were small. We really didn't need a booking system back then, but we invested in the future, right, assuming we were going to grow. And then we kind of put the infrastructure in place pretty early. Like I brought on a CFO pretty early, my SVP of technology very early, my CMO early, my COO early. Like I put in place a team to support the growth, and it worked. And then thank God we did, because then COVID happened and growth exploded. Right? I mean, first it sunk to the ground and we were all scared, and then it exploded. And if we hadn't had the right infrastructure in place, we could have broken it.
Yeah, the COVID thing was, the RV industry is kind of the only one that kind of benefited, as far as I know, as much as anything in COVID. But you mentioned hiring, and I know you have some experience in mergers and acquisitions. So can you address any challenges you faced maybe when merging staff? Like when you took on Boondockers Welcome or the more recent Escapees acquisition, all of a sudden you have lots of positions, they might be overlapping. So when that happens, what kind of challenges did you face there, and how'd you get through that? Or are you still?
No, it totally every day's a challenge, right? And in a positive way. I feel like it's a positive challenge. It's one that's not insurmountable, but always worth working on. Um, After buying Harvest Hosts, what I realized, and this is, I guess, is similar to after hiring that first employee and after
Hmm.
buying that first iPhone, I'm like, ooh, I like this. Basically, if you can find a good business and pay the right price for it, it is way easier than building this from the ground up. And it's because you skip the whole product market fit problem. And product market fit is a disaster, right? It's so hard to figure out how to get product market fit and pricing. If you can buy a company that's already figured that out, and then you can apply your skill set of growth uh, and scaling, that's amazing. So we've now purchased 6 companies over the last 6 years, and it's been a wonderful ride. And I think we're pretty good at it. And I think that we're pretty good at identifying great companies. I take pride in that. Like, we only buy companies that we use, that I'm a member of, or I've actually used myself. Like, they're great. I bought, I was an Escapees member years ago, right? That's how I knew about Escapees. I was a Boondockers Welcome member. Um, I wasn't a Brit Stops member in the United Kingdom, but but I loved the concept, and I vetted them and made sure they were a good business. But basically, buy good companies. We're good at that. Pay the right price, right? And that's a whole thing. Like, we work with the entrepreneurs to make sure they're getting a good price. We feel like we can afford it. Um, as far as then merging them together, that's a complicated part.
Sure.
And the first ones are kind of easy, right? Like, most of these were founder-led businesses where we purchased the business, then put the founders on a consulting agreement for a certain duration, call it 6 months. Um, and over that time did a full transition and then went separate ways. Um, then it was a matter of integrating the technology,
Sure.
or in most cases, completely rebuilding it. And that was harder. And so Boondockers Welcome, like, the challenge we faced there was we took an existing technology product and we basically built it into we turned it into Harvest Hosts. We used our platform with their concept without thinking enough about how is this going to impact people who are used to using Boondockers Welcome already. And that was an oversight. And we made a mistake there. If I could go back in time, I would slow it down. I would take our time to really learn what people liked about the other product, the other
Hmm.
technology product, and try to make sure that it was perfectly merged before we, slammed them together.
Sure.
That was a good learning experience. Escapees, honestly, that's the first time we've bought a company that came with employees in a meaningful way. And we brought 18 employees over, and they're all wonderful. And that was important, right? If we had gotten in and culturally we weren't aligned, if we interviewed the team and just we didn't vibe, we never would have purchased them. But they were RVers like us. We all had the same goals, and we actually vibed really well. So
Yeah.
it's been good. But every day, anytime you do an integration, it's tough because
Sure.
cultures are always different. Even if they're similar, they're different.
Yeah. This episode is made possible by Travelfy. Want reliable internet without the hassle? Meet Travelfy. It's portable, high-speed Wi-Fi that's ready to go wherever you are. From road trips to remote cabins. No tricky setup or permanent location required. Just plug in and you're connected. And here's the best part. No contracts, no commitments, and no reactivation fees. Pay only for the months you need. Travelfy connects to the strongest available signal among multiple major networks, so you stay online with confidence, backed by a US-based support team that knows the outdoor lifestyle. Travelfy, simplifying internet while you travel. Visit travelfy.com today. That's TRAVLFI.com. Listeners can save 15% with code RVE at checkout. So back to the products for a minute. I read that when you bought Harvest Host, you thought the membership price was too low. And I'm a firm believer of perceived value. But can you tell us your thoughts about underselling a concept that makes the offering feel cheap? And when raising prices, when raising those prices, what did you implement to create the actual value to make it worthwhile for the consumer?
Yes. So yes, when I purchased Harvest Host, the price was 40. They were charging like $44 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like that was way undervalued based on my personal experience as a member and how much value I was getting out of it. Talking to other members, they loved it. And what I realized was, and at the time, I was not actually trying to explode membership growth. I said, let's raise price because I just personally think it's undervalued. And as the owner now, I get to make that decision. And the people who were going to complain, to me, if someone's going to complain about a $44 price product versus $79 where we took it, they're the type of person who might not have been the best member because they might be a little too cheap to support the hosts. So in a way, I was trying to smoke out anyone who was $2 conscious, because that we need people who are ready to go spend at hosts and happy to, buy the wine, et cetera. If someone's chasing every nickel, that's not the right member.
Right.
And so that was the decision. I'm like, let's take price up. Hey, if our membership goes down a little bit or stays flat, no worries. Like, that's great. We'll just have a smaller, really like passionate membership set. What actually happened was it grew because I grandfathered in anybody who was on that price. And I actually gave people some time. I gave them a couple months to join before we raised prices. And I said, hey, if you join, I'm not going to raise price on you in the future. It's just going to be new people coming in.
I could really relate to that bit I read about the $90 customer who didn't want to pay it. I used to get calls in our marketing business. People would say, I need a banner. I'd say, why? And then I'd say, well, you actually need a branding campaign. And they'd say, I can get my banner at Kinko's. I'd say, go right ahead, because that's not the customer you want. You want someone who's going to invest in the experience, right?
They would love to have you.
Yeah. So
that's right.
What did you learn through the Harvest Hosts and the Boondockers Welcome acquisitions that might help or is helping with the transition involved after acquiring Escapees? Because what I'm getting at here is that they have so many members. They've got the BOFs and the interest groups, the hops and the events. They have such a varied membership and demographic with the escapers. It seems more challenging to market that many member benefits rather than selling some rather straightforward products like you had with just Harvest Host alone. So you're selling the warm, fuzzy feeling and the community spirit, not just a product. So what's the difference between marketing those member benefits versus this product offering?
Yeah, it's very different. But the reason I was attracted to it, and you nailed it, is community. So I have wanted to build, I think RVing is all about community in some way or another. People love, though there's a reason they're on the road. They're trying to find connection with someone and something, right? The small business, each other. Rallies are very popular for a reason. And Harvest Host has always had a community vibe to it, or at least like that's what people say. Our members would always say you're a community. And it's funny because I'm like, we've never provided you any community resources at all, right? There's just no way to do that. But Escapees is all community. And so my thought was, wow, if we can take an actual community and combine it with Harvest Host, well, now people can go find the community. And if they want to go to events, right, we have Escapade coming up in March. It's going to be awesome. You want to meet people in person? Now we've got the event for you. If you want to go, if you want to join a chapter, you want to join the Birds of a Feather group, we've got those, right? And I've always wanted to have chapters and interest groups. And again, why reinvent the wheel? Escapees has been doing this really well for over 40 years. Let's take that concept and just bring it to the masses and improve on it was my concept. But yeah, very different concept for sure.
I feel for you because now you have all of these different, product offerings and community feelings. Renee and I, we manage a membership community where the number one product is kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling. Our business model is a freemium method where you get a lot of free stuff, free membership and tiers of premium offerings. How are you structuring Harvest Host to encompass these different plans, plus Boondockers Welcome, and now Escapees? And oh, by the way, we have Escapers and their various different benefits, and avoiding customer confusion. I mean, that's got to be challenging.
It's one of the biggest challenges. You nailed it. And I'm a big fan of simplicity. I think that life's too complicated in most ways. I love simple. And so we're actually currently working on a much more streamlined approach to the plans and structures where everyone, and I can say this confidently, we've already emailed everybody about it. Every one of our members, regardless of which membership plan they're on, is going to get more next year. Access to more stuff. All access members are going to get Escapees for free. Escapees are going to get all of our campers card 1,000 campgrounds for free. And we're not raising the price on anybody in any place. And so next year's all about more for less. In a time when everyone's raising prices, we're not. And I'm excited about that. But also part of that is streamlining. We're trying to clean things up a little bit because I don't want it to be confusing. And it's hard because there's a lot of pieces now.
It is hard, and I can't wait to see how you do it, for one, just from the marketing side. And as an escapee, an escaper, and former Harvest Host member, I want to see what those plans take shape and how you present them. But I know you can't please everyone. And I saw some backlash among escapees in the community after the acquisition for whatever reason. Certain people didn't understand how those things go. But what kind of damage control might have been necessary, or how can any company who acquires or inherits a passionate member base assure those people that the boat isn't going to get rocked too much?
Yeah, I think, what I've learned is communicate early and communicate often. That is like the easiest way to make people feel better is no one likes uncertainty. So especially when you buy a really special company, a special brand like Escapees, you want to tell people, hey, don't worry, we've got this, and here's why. And you got to tell them a lot, because the natural skeptics are going to say, great, here we go again, and they're going to ruin it. I knew we weren't going to. I mean, our first, internally, our whole marching orders were first, do no harm. So when we bought Escapees, we said, let's do nothing. We need to get to know the product. We need to get to know, all the employees really well, get to know the members, find out what they want. And then step one, and I've tried to say this everywhere I can, is we want to make improvements, not changes. I'm not trying to change the program. I want to improve it, right? So like we put a new ticketing system in place because the old one didn't work very well. Just an improvement, right? So, it's interesting. Like I see the naysayers and it's cool. Like I think at the end of the day, I know we haven't done anything wrong, and we're not going to. So to be kind of candid, I don't take the naysayers very seriously, because we have no reason to feel bad about anything, right?
Oh, no.
I know that we're going to, we're ultimately going to make things better, and they'll see it, right? Like they'll see it. Although I always say, like, you couldn't sell Bibles to a Bible school without someone complaining. Like people with enough numbers people are going to be upset and verbal. But I'm excited for Escapade. I'll be there. I'm gonna be handing out drinks to everybody. So if anyone has any questions, or any complaints, come to me. I'm there. We don't hide behind our computers. We actually get out there.
So 2 years ago, you said your 5-year plan included to get Harvest Host to 1 million members and 20,000 hosts. Are you on track for that? And why? What's your exit strategy or ultimate goal for this company?
Yeah, my ultimate goal is just to take this to what I think is a reasonable amount of RVers. And I do think we can get to 1 million members, right? That is still my goal, because there are millions of RVers who should have our product. That's how I feel. And there are millions of RVers who should be part of Escapees community, or staying at wineries and breweries, or saving money at campgrounds. One way or another, I think we offer things that many, many, many more RVers would benefit from. And then for hosts, sure, I would love to get to 20,000 hosts, because I think there are another 10,000 hosts out there who would benefit from these RV members coming through and purchasing products. So those numbers are, in some ways quite aspirational, but in other ways, I think reasonable. And I didn't create them because it creates some financial empire that I want. It's that I think that those are the numbers where we'll be giving $100 million back a year to small businesses. That's really amazing. And, it'd actually be more than that. At that point, it'd be like 200 million. It's crazy. But, and then a lot more RVers, I think, are going to be living happier lives on the road. And that ultimately is our mission. Our mission statement is very simple: to create happier campers and communities, right? Full stop. That's always been our mission. It's never changed. All these acquisitions have only been fuel for the mission. And if we can get to 1 million members and 20,000 hosts, that's a lot of happier campers and happier hosts.
I think you might have answered my last question here. And that was going to be, how do you measure success? Like not in terms of pleasing investors and the bottom line, but personally, how do you measure success?
Well, for me personally, and I think that's where it's right. You've got business success and personal success. For me personally, success is freedom, which you mentioned, right? It's the freedom to be able to spend time with my family, with my young kids, the freedom to be able to go out in nature and ski and hike. I protect that. And business to me is a facilitator of that freedom. As a business, success is trying to get to a larger scale of RVers and hosts, because I think there's a lot more of them that could benefit, right? And that is true. And every year we set actual goals in our march towards, a larger footprint. but yeah, we're doing it in service of this mission of happier campers and community. Yep, very much so.
A fantastic mission. And it comes back, a lot of my conversations on the show come back to that live work balance that you kind of mentioned there, and the business and the life and, the living and the working. Personally, it's unobtainable. It just is. If you do what you love, you're going to do it well and you're going to get rewarded and be successful. And it's more of a cycle. But everyone asks, well, how do you get that live work balance? How do you manage that? Like, personally, as RVers, we're out there enjoying this life that we have to work so hard to do so we can enjoy the life. And it's just kind of a cycle for me. But what thoughts do you have on the whole live work balance that everyone wants to achieve?
So it's interesting. I personally came up with I don't know what to call it, an algorithm, a formula. It's a formula for me that's on my wall, and it's happiness equals freedom plus meaningfulness. Because what I realized for me personally was that either one, alone doesn't quite work. Because those years I had with no work, I had all freedom every single day, and it wasn't enough to make me happy. Meaningfulness is an important part of the equation. And so when I think about, the decision to have children, that for sure decreased freedom, but it skyrocketed meaningfulness. And when I added those two together, happiness went up. The decision to purchase Harvest Hosts instead of just coasting off into retirement, freedom went down, but meaningfulness went way up. And it was awesome. Now I make decisions every day where I'm like, okay, I could go buy this company, but my freedom's going to go down and my meaningfulness also might not go up enough to offset it. Therefore, I'm not going to do it. That's kind of my equation.
So I think we just came up with the title for this episode, or at least the meme graphic I'm going to create about happiness equals freedom plus meaningfulness. Joel, I can't thank you enough for sharing all this. And I'm sure your team is faced with huge challenges and you're very busy with branding and messaging for Harvest Hosts, Boondockers Welcome, Escapees, Escapers. I'm sure you're working on website and social updates, but where's the best place listeners can learn more about everything you guys are offering?
But harvesthost.com, that's got it all. I love our Harvest Host Instagram account. If you really want to see the fun things our members are out there doing, it's a great place. And then Facebook, right, is the biggest conversation. So our Facebook page has a ton of content on it. There are Facebook groups. If you want to join the conversation, Facebook's always a great place. But we'd love to have you. If you have if you have a small business and you want more, traffic and revenue, it's a free program for hosts. It always has been. And if you want to join as a member, it's $100 a year for our classic plan. And there's a lot of value baked into that.
There is. I can attest to it. We've been to some wonderful Harvest Host locations. We'll drop lots of links in the show notes. Joel, thanks again so much, and congratulations on all this.
Thanks, Jim. That was fun.
So, were you taking notes? I did. Let's see. Risk is inherent as an entrepreneur, but it should be calculated. To avoid burnout, understand your personal goals and limits. Building strong relationships is crucial for growth. Effective communication is key to managing member expectations. A community-focused business can create a win-win-win situation for all involved. Community is such a vital aspect of the RVing experience. See a trend developing here? So many of my discussions with RV entrepreneurs have boiled down to the importance of relationships and community building. See for yourself by searching the archives at therventrepreneur.com/episodes. Then, pop into the RVE community group on Facebook. Let us know your thoughts. Will you be at Escapade? Heading to any Escaper convergences? Connect with other RV entrepreneurs and maybe we can get an RVE contingency together. And if you're struggling to grow your enterprise or wondering how to market your business, stay tuned for more insight from experts on the RV entrepreneur. And remember,
communicate early and communicate often. No one likes uncertainty.
Searching for the perfect campground can be overwhelming, but not with RV Life Campgrounds. With user-generated reviews, RV-specific data, and real-world internet speed tests, you'll have all the information you need to find your ideal spot. Don't leave your camping experience to chance. Trust the experts at RV Life. Visit campgrounds.rvlife.com to start your search.
Happiness equals freedom plus meaningfulness.